Welcome to another special episode of Previously in X-Men, where we are going to be doing live drawing instead of looking at the comics that became classic. Usually, my Group of Seven Comics collaborator, Chris Sanigan, is here with me, and we go through basically the Chris Claremont run from 1975 through. And right now, we're up to issue 201 in that series. But Chris is on vacation, gives me a very special opportunity to welcome my guest, Dave Pretorius. Dave, I hope you're really well. I'm glad you're here. You threw a comment in the video last week that got me thinking that you're not just the fact that you're super talented and a super nice guy and a friend, but you'd be a really great person to have on with me because uh, you are like open about the emotions and the up and down of drawing, and you have all the really good healthy self-doubts, which are just fantastic, but you also have the goods to deliver some really good art and great conversation. So I'd like to welcome you to the show. Really glad you're here with me. How are you?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I'm doing pretty great. I always love to watch the show, and the odd times I get to come on, always exciting.
That's
You
right.
know,
I was
I've
trying to
been here
remember
a year ago.
what issue you were here for before, and I don't remember exactly what number it
It
was, but
was the Magneto origin,
oh,
uh, like 161, maybe
sure, right around there. That's good. That's
165,
been
somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's been come up in conversation lately too because it was a huge part of the animated series,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Especially the season finale, that was a huge part of that one. That was a fun one to do with you. And blanket statement, you're welcome back anytime. I'm just a little shy about asking people to come on because I feel it's an imposition. But you are welcome whenever you want to come on. You're always welcome to come on. Whether Chris is here, whether he's away, whether I'm dead, it doesn't matter. You're always welcome to do that. So glad you
Well, I
could be here
appreciate
with us.
it. I credit
Um,
you guys with getting me like to read the old X-Men stuff. I'm, you know, I got into X-Men on Jim Lee. Like that was what brought me in initially, right? So that was my Chris Claremont run, and not
right.
like John Byrne, not Paul Smith, not John Romita Jr. So kind of going through these with you guys with the issues that I do have now and the ones I don't, been a lot of fun. And just, hearing the talk about it, getting the behind the scenes stuff when you guys can add to it. And it's always really interesting.
Well, we're happy we can be there and be a somewhat positive influence on you. At the same time, on my like wall of Canadian cartoonists and things, right about there, there's a little Gambit sketch card
Yeah.
that a very, very friendly Dave Pretorius came by my table at Toronto Comic Con and said, "Here you go, sir." And I cherish that object, and it's one of those things that also makes me realize that, like, hey, my run of X-Men that I love the most is not everyone's. Like, there are lots of entry points, and that's one of the beautiful things with comics in general, right? There isn't one version of comics that are best. There's, all people that I care about and respect have different ways in and different entry points, even with the same X universe. So you
Mm.
might like Gambit. For me, Gambit's like, meh. He had a really good season on the show on X-Men 97, so I like him more now than I did a year ago. But when I got that from you, I was like, oh my God, you know, this is someone's favorite character. And you and people, like Jason Lowe, always remind me that, like, no, there's other versions of X-Men out there that people really love that are not the same as mine. And it's always a fantastic reminder. Before we talk about your awesome, how is that pronounced? Caillou Panique? How is that pronounced?
Kaiju Panic.
before before we talk about your awesome comic that you made, Kaiju Panic, let's just say hello to people in the chat. I see Ali is here. Ali says, "Happy Tuesday, all you awesome nerds. I'm psyched for Jason Artistic Life Coach Part 2. Well, you never know what you're going to get. It might be Jason should be biting his tongue and says too much. It might be Jason doesn't say enough. You never know. It's just we're going to play the game and take our chances tonight. So glad you can be here with us, Ali. And I really appreciate your positivity and your receptiveness. So thank you very much. Chuck says, "Samesies, happy Tuesday," which never used to be a thing I would say. Fair enough, Chuck. Fair enough. Michael says, "Hello, everyone." Katie says, "Hi." And Hank says that, Dave, you are a stellar artist. Do you think Hank is talking about you or a different Dave?
I hope so. I've you know, he's I've done some work with him previously. Hank makes films, and I've done concept design art for him and art that's shown up in some of his films. So, you know, I think he had some of my art on his wall. I don't know if he still does.
Nice, nice. So let's talk about Kaiju Panic. My first impression of Kaiju Panic was last year at the Mississauga Comic Expo. I had a chance to see some of your original pages that you had. I think you were still working on the ones even that you brought in.
Yeah,
Were they
as I said,
penciled or inked? I don't remember. Maybe there was some inks on them.
they were inked. I
Um,
think I had about 5 pages with me at the time.
right. And I'm gonna just zoom in on give a solo view for this one here because, and just would you give us like the pitch of what Kaiju Panic is?
Yeah, so Kaiju Panic is a book that my son and I created. Uh, he came up with the story when he was about 6 years old. It's about a T-Rex with like magical powers that fights giant monsters. It's about as simple as that. It's a wordless comic. When my son came up with the idea, he was not quite reading yet, but he really liked comics like Gone that don't really have words to them. They're just told with pictures. And he wanted to do something in that style as well, so that any kid could read it.
Right.
So it's black and white, it's wordless, but it's about a T-Rex that fights a giant monster.
That's awesome. And it's
Yeah,
such a fun thing, like that anyone can kind of get behind too, because from one point of view, like T Rex is the monster, but then you put another monster, and all of a sudden T Rex is the little guy,
yeah. I mean, he's right there. He's you know that's your size difference right there. And they get in a big fight, and craziness ensues. And it's been a lot of fun putting this together with him. My son Wolf, he's very passionate about it. He had a lot of great insight and criticism. He was a very tough editor as well. He was
I
always
see
on
like
me.
the two hands on
Mhm.
the T Rex come shooting out, like it
Yeah,
blasts its hands.
he's got rocket arms.
Rocket arms. There you go. That
Yeah,
sounds like
so
a really fun thing that a kid would think of. That is perfect in its simplicity.
yeah. He just he gave me a lot of fantastic story ideas, and I tried to just yes and everything he had to say. I didn't want to say no to anything, and I wanted to
Right.
just take all of his wild ideas and turn it into something that people could read and enjoy, and then he could read and enjoy it as well. That's kind of the biggest thing.
And that's really a fun creative exercise too, right? To be a consciously good collaborator and brainstormer. Like the yes and, like you mentioned, is like a staple of improv comedy. And
Yes.
to do that in any kind of relationship, especially a creative one, it can be very challenging and trying at times. So that's a commendable approach to take. Do you mind if I ask about art inspiration? Like, did you pull from anything more heavily than normal? Like, did you look to anything for some artistic guidance?
I'm trying to think. I was looking at some manga at the time too, so kind of adding some of the screen tone elements and a lot of the speed lines and in the action. Not much beyond that. Like I really
No.
tried to. My main reference point for dinosaur was a toy that my son had of a T-Rex. So I was taking that thing and looking at it at all angles to make sure that um, my matter focus here.
It's okay.
Uh,
Yeah, the compression sometimes shows up on YouTube as well, but yeah, it's a little out of focus at the moment, but it's okay.
yeah,
Obviously, you don't want to give everyone the high res version. You want them to reach out and get the book itself. Where can we actually get this, by the way?
you can get it off my website, redidraws.com. So if you see my at in my little description there, redidraws.com. I sell comics and original art on there as well, just kind of post cool things that I'm working on. and it's also my Instagram handle, so it's easy to find.
I will add that to the description of the video. So by the time that we finish this, it'll be a link that people can click on from there.
Awesome.
That should help a little bit for people to find you. Not like it'll be hard, but there you go. That helped the zoom, or helped the focus there. It's funny with dinosaurs and toys. I'm going to change the view if you don't mind, okay?
Yeah, go for it.
It's fun with dinosaurs and toys because like they're never accurate. You know, like flesh moving over bone. Sorry, skin moving over bone and muscle. Like it changes. I have like a dinosaur reference in. I'm working on a book right now that has what we would all call velociraptors, but known as Deinonychus. If you're a dinosaur nerd, and so I've got one on hand. You know, and you can only do so much with these things, but they're really fun just to get some of the angles right when you want to have, like in your work, those extreme. Extreme perspectives, you know, it will really help with keeping like how much the tail is going to show up or how much of the back leg is going to appear. Where, you know, I think it takes, you know, you still need your 10,000 hours of time drawing dinosaurs just to really capture it. So having some references is extremely helpful. You have a favorite dinosaur?
I've always loved the Parasaurolophus.
Yeah.
If you know that one, it's a hadrosaur. It's got the big
I do.
kind of tubey bone that comes out of the back of its head. They have one at the ROM, and it's a pretty much complete skeleton. It's beautiful.
The ROM has the only intact Parasaurolophus crest in the world.
I did not know that.
So if you go to another museum anywhere in the world and you see a skull of a Parasaurolophus with the full crest intact, it is because it is a replica of the one at the ROM. There you go.
Wow. I did not know that. That's exciting.
I've come across
my son.
I've come across the replica of that skull on 2 occasions in museums around the world too. So it was kind of fun to like find the little thing that says, you know, replica courtesy of the Royal Ontario Museum. Yeah, it's a joy, that one. So yeah, it's a nice hadrosaur, and it's really fun to think about like what that crest was used for. And given like the size of the animal's lungs and the fact that we think the crest was hollow, paleontologists have been able to like extrapolate what the sound going through it could be and how far that noise could travel for things like, you know, herd communication. It's kind of a fun one. Yeah. Neat animal.
Yeah,
there you go. Now, if you can spell Parasaurolophus out there in the internet world without looking it up, then you are a champ. It's not an easy one to say. And it's really adorable hearing little kids try and say Parasaurolophus. It's a good one. If you think saying Paschetti is cute, wait till you hear them mess up Parasaurolophus. So, you want to get into doing some drawing? Did you get a little pre-drawing done for yours as well?
I did. I didn't do Deadpool Wolverine. I did a Cyclops. I wanted to, and it's Cyclops in the X Factor costume as well. So it's that simple hooded one with the big, huge X across his chest. Love the design.
Are you a white X or yellow X era fan?
I mean, I prefer the design of the yellow X, but I probably came in around the white X.
Yeah, so the yellow one was where they start, right? And then when Walt Simonson takes over, I think he quickly switches them into their second iteration. So he like moves Jean into the red and yellow, and Beast into the brown and yellow, and obviously Angel turns into Archangel. Iceman gets that belt because his powers get out of control. And Cyclops goes into the blue and white. When they first started the series, I was like, this is so cool to see them kind of the original team in their Neil Adams colors. Like or Don Heck, I think, is the first one to draw them in their costumes just out of the training uniform, like the next version. But yeah, that's where I came on board. So I did a preliminary sketch, and I went a little hard on some pencils. These things get dirty so fast. Like the graphite just smudges, but I find getting Wolverine's face even close to like the details of his mask even close, I need to do quite a bit of penciling. I do not trust my inking to get it, you know, perfect. I'm going to get rid of. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to ask, like, what is the texture of that paper? Like, I've never even touched it.
It's smooth and no tooth to it at all.
Oh.
It absorbs marker fine. It doesn't do much else with anything else. It's a big mess. It's not fun to work on at all.
I
And
saw
I'm
last week with you dropping some India ink on it, and it did not hit.
so last week's is right here. I'll throw that under, and
Oh, it
it
looks great now.
well, thanks. It was really fun to do, and I threw quite a bit of white paint on it different times and did some layers, and it's hard. Like every time, if I add an eraser to it, it takes the ink right off.
Oh no.
So yeah, so there's quite a bit of I had to do quite a bit of re-inking of certain lines, and I also threw a layer of Copic black over top of the inks, like in these big areas, to see what would happen. I wanted to experiment, and of course, the Copic on top of the ink, the paper did not want to absorb any of it. So
Oh
it
no.
was a really good mess, but fun to do, and I could keep going on and on, like you keep drawing on it, but I had to just say, okay, enough is enough. It was fun to play with, and it won't crack or anything. It's okay, but it's obviously pretty shiny under a spotlight. But in person, it looks pretty neat. My wife was putting some things away in my studio, and she just put some like uh, gift wrapping supplies on top of it. And I was like, she's like, hey, where do you want me to put this stuff? I said, anywhere but on top of original art. She goes, oh, I thought that was like printed. Sorry. She thought it was
Oh
like, a regular comic, which is a compliment.
yeah, high praise.
Um, yeah, she was really sweet about that. So yeah, that's here. And I'll probably, bring this to whatever next con I do. I'm tempted to actually scan it and do a color version of it.
Why not?
Just like how you were talking about with Kaiju Panic, like leaving it black and white and wordless. So your storytelling has to be really sound, as well as your line art and use of black and white. This one I think would really be aided, and it's like from here you can't tell what's going on. I think the image would be much more clear if the characters were in color. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So having a character in yellow and a character in red would help distinguish between, because I have some overlap where like Wolverine is slicing Deadpool's right-handed gun in 3 or in
Right.
4, pardon me, and the blast of Deadpool's gun is like obscuring some of the visuals. So it's a bit more complicated than it would, or maybe than it should be. But sometimes you give it a shot. So I'm tempted to, like I said, maybe do a color version of that, but I don't want to throw marker on it because I think it'll make it a mess. But I might test it out anyway. We'll see.
Yeah.
It won't cost me anything. You know what I mean? So I'm happy to give it a try. Um, yeah, you've got another shout out here.
Oh yay.
Hey, yeah, go Dave. Yeah, Dave's gonna go. He's gonna go. Allie says, go with your gut on color. See also recolor amazingness you've done for 200. So yeah, there's that's just for issue 200 of X-Men, the one where Magneto is on trial and he's standing there. I found the original art is available online, so I just grabbed that original page and changed the levels to make it just black and white, and I recolored it because I wanted to see what would happen if it would change the story. On the cover, all the colors are very literal, and Magneto's in his literal magenta purple, and all the characters are in their literal colors with a white background. But I kind of thought that for the story, he should be isolated. He should be in a somber, like cool colors up front, and the characters should be in heated battle in the back. In sort of, they're in kind of reds and he's in sort of blues, and that the fact that they're together is more symbolic. It's not supposed to be a literal that he's standing in chains in front of them while they fight. So I did a fun couple hours recoloring it, and it's interesting. I think it's a little oversaturated at the moment, and I need to kind of do a couple iterations to tone it down. But I showed it to Allie, and it's a bit of a mess, but she's a good sport, so it's nice. Do you want to get drawn and we'll
Yes.
talk X-Men movies for a minute, but no spoilers, of course.
I've yet to see Deadpool and Wolverine, so
Good.
you'll get no spoilers from me.
All right, I'm gonna just change the cams so that we aren't seen. And I hope my sound's.
Nope.
All right, I can figure this out. We will. I'll play for a minute, and figure it out.
Okay. I think I need to start with this optic glass. This will be the only thing I use a micron for.
All right. Is it okay if I leave it like this? Do you mind?
No, not at all. Go for it.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right. You're a nice guy. Okay, so tell me, what's your intro to X-Men movies? Did you see the first one when it came out?
I did. In fact, I skipped school to go and see it in the theaters on the first showing on the day it came out, having already pre-purchased tickets to see it later that night. I couldn't wait.
Yeah, that sounds like a good X-Men fan.
You know, before that, for Marvel movies, I think the only thing we had was Blade. And I was 14 when that movie came out. So I still found my way into the theater to see it.
Right.
And, you know, X-Men was the next thing. And I was very, very excited to go see it. And of course, I liked it so much, I went back and saw it again that evening.
Similar to me, I saw the first one in theaters too, and I was already, a diehard fan.
Yeah, I read the Jim Lee stuff growing up. I think around that time, the Joe Madureira stuff had kind of come and gone, and I was into that stuff, which is where I think a lot of my love for Gambit came from as a character. And so, yeah, I had already had a decent background in X-Men as well at that point. Just, different era, right?
Yeah. But that's the beauty of it. Is sort of, it seems to have been there for everybody at the right time, right? Like,
yeah.
I missed the John Byrne era when it came out because I was still too young. I wasn't reading comics, but it was reintroduced as classic X-Men when I was a little kid. So I got on eventually and fell in love with that stuff. But yeah, by the time the movie came out, movies were entering into that world where they could start to do superhero movies and make them look good enough that they weren't like the cheese fest of the early 90s or the late 80s when it came to superheroes. I think once we saw The Matrix, we're like, oh, it's all possible now.
Yeah.
I remember Neo flies to the camera at the end of the movie, and I'm like, oh, we're here. Anything goes.
Yeah, that was a big movie for me too. I think a lot of people at the time. I mean, 1999, right?
Yeah. Not to go too far into the Matrix thing, but like, man, oh man, the ad campaign was like, what is the Matrix? And my friend Paul and I went to just go see it at the local theater on maybe a Tuesday night or whatever. And it was before the hype hit. And we didn't really know what it was. We were just going on the strength of, Keanu Reeves is kind of fun. We've seen enough movies with him, and we don't have no idea what this movie's going to be about. But let's just go out tonight and see this movie. And we came out with our minds fucking blown. It was a great time.
Yeah, I was similar boat. Like I didn't really know what to expect, but it looked like something different and something kind of new. And I think I had maybe had another friend who had seen it before me, who's just like, I'm not going to tell you anything about it. You just need to go see this now.
Yeah.
And went with a group of my friends, and same deal. We came out, and movies weren't the same anymore.
Yeah, which is a good way to set the stage for things like X-Men and Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. Oh. So do you have a favorite X-Men movie?
Yes. X2, X-Men United was my favorite. You got some Weapon X in there. You got Wolverine really kind of being more Wolverine than he kind of was in the first one.
Yeah, and the first one, he's like a lost puppy. A lot of it, his time around the mansion, he's just panicked from one room to another. Other than the opening scene with him in the bar fight, like in the cage, that was at the time like the most Wolverine-y thing I could possibly imagine. That was incredible.
And getting to see him fight Sabretooth was pretty rad too. Anyway.
Yeah, by the end, you mean? Or
Yeah,
do you mean out there in the wilderness?
wasn't much of a fight
No,
that
it
end.
was not. It was not.
But yeah, getting to see him fight Sabretooth on Statue of Liberty, I think it was.
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty cool too. But then, X2, you've got Nightcrawler introduced, which was that opening scene with him in the White House. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a big fuss.
I'm trying to
People were
remember
very excited.
what was the year that came out. Do you recall?
Nope. Sorry.
No, it
Someone
was
put it in the chat.
because I think at the time I was working at a comic shop and I went with the whole crew from that comic shop to go and see the movie. And, seeing it with a big group of people that are all a bunch of comic nerds kind of, increases the level of hype that comes along with it.
I agree. Okay, Ali's saying something here. Actually, there's quite a bit happening in the chat. Let me see what's going on. There's some quote unquote spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine. Big spoiler from Chuck. It's so much fun. Yeah, definitely. If you enjoyed the movie, no harm in saying you liked it or didn't like it. I saw it as well and had a great time, and the theater enjoyed it very much. Hank says, best part of the new Deadpool movie is when Wolverine tells Luke that's his father, and they can overthrow the Emperor together. It was beautiful, beautiful moment.
I think Hank might have confused a little bit.
It's possible. I actually was worried going into the theater because people were chatting outside before I got in. I actually had that Homer Simpson moment where, they're like walking out being, oh my God. I thought they were going to spoil it. Yes, and then Captain Kirk took the ring to Mordor. Yes. And Dumbledore Calrissian. Yeah, you guys are having a good time with this joke. My goodness. The wardrobe. Yep. Chuck says he was really reluctant to see The Matrix. He'd already been burned by Johnny Mnemonic. Yeah, Johnny Mnemonic stunk. By the way, filmed in Toronto, so my friends, we were more interested in watching it just for the landmark spotting. We famously have an extra subway station, base station. We have an extra one. And I'm just talking to the internet, not to you, Dave. Sorry. Because I'm assuming you knew this already. So a lot of movies like Johnny Mnemonic and I think Mimic and many others of that time period, they use the extra base station as a location in the movie. So we're always fans of finding those spots. Yeah. Yeah, Dave's drawing, or in this case, inking, it's really cool to watch. And because you printed that up, right? So you did a digital drawing?
I did, yeah. I wasn't able to make it over to my studio last night, so I just sat on my couch with my laptop and tablet and drew this up.
That's perfect. So then you print it up in blue line, and that way there's no smudging and no erasing to do. So it's a really great strategy. I have to admit, I do this sometimes too, but it doesn't work for a sketch cover. Yeah.
And then, I tape off my border so I can get messy with the ink going around, and then you get that satisfying peel at the end.
Yes, I should do the same thing. Ali says, oh, sure, because Batman was sidetracked with life, the universe, and everything. Yeah, it wasn't enough action in Batman. You're right. So everyone works outward in, even with inks. I'd be worried about smudging. You should be worried about smudging, Ali. It is a concern. We usually kind of know which of our lines is wet still, and we avoid. And we all make mistakes, and we all smudge, and it happens.
Totally.
I wouldn't say that I always work outside in, but sometimes I get excited to do faces first, or I keep my mind open about it. In a case when the characters are this small, on my cover, for instance, the characters I find are quite small to draw. I definitely want to get that outline done so I don't lose it, because I feel like my eyes are going to get tired and I'll lose it eventually. But after the outline, I'm probably going to go right to his face. But yeah, smudging is real.
It totally is, and that's why I'm kind of jumping around. But I'm doing the outline because I'm really just kind of warming up with my brush first and making sure I feel like I have some control before I go to do those details that I, even though I have whiteout, I can't really take that. I want to keep them nice and clean.
Hank adds, Days of Future Past just slightly edges out X2 for me. I recognize that Days of Future Past is not usually critically held in high regard, nor do fans, often cite it as a favorite. But I find it to be an incredibly watchable movie that I go to for as comfort food over and over. I'm not exactly sure what about the movie I love, but um, yeah, I go back to it all the time.
I think it did a really good job of bridging the kind of, if you will, legacy version of the movie X-Men characters and the First Class,
Yeah,
getting to see all of them back on screen. Especially, I personally was not a big fan of the third X-Men film, uh,
what
The
Apocalypse?
Last Stand, I think it was.
Oh, that
Yeah,
one. Sorry. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so I felt like that original X crew kind of got done a little dirty, and getting them back in there and teaming up with their past selves was kind of cool.
Definitely. I hear you.
So I will say this about it. I did not love the Sentinels in that movie. I felt like the design is so good in the comics. Why'd you mess with it?
In Days of Future Past, like so when Magneto takes them to the stadium or sorry, to the White House. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you had two versions of Sentinels in that movie. You had the future version that were almost like nano machine kind of
Oh,
things.
right, right.
And then you had the past version. They are almost like bubbly plastic, but
Yeah.
neither one of them really captured
Hmm.
that classic kind of
I hear
Sentinel.
you. Allie says Dave Cyclops' hand is gorgeous. Yeah, it's really good.
Thank you.
The rest of him stinks, but the hand is, yeah, really cool. I don't
Yeah,
think anyone was a fan of X3, says Chuck. Yeah, again, that one is definitely much maligned for many reasons, that movie.
Vinnie Jones is the Juggernaut. You didn't like that?
I don't mind that as a casting choice. I think it's maybe the way they used him.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's so many bad things about that movie, but I try and watch. Sometimes I just want X-Men content, so I'll
hmm
watch things even if I think they're not that good. And every time I watch it, I kind of regret it. David Cutler is commenting about his boy Cyclops. He's happy to see some representation.
Yay.
David Cutler, how are you, sir? Also, one of the other people out there who's helped keep me on track about loving everyone else's love of characters. Mass, how you doing, man? Massimo says X3 was horrible. Days was probably one of the best of the later X-Men films. Yeah, I'm having trouble being objective about these, about the other ones. I just, for whatever reason, like I said, I get a lot of joy out of watching Days of Future Past. Um, like most audiences, I really like watching Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. So anytime that we get more of him doing stuff, I'm happy to watch him. Allie says, I enjoy the rogue cut of Days of Future Past, just slightly more rogue, but the edit lends itself to Dave's point about blending the old 2000s and the current team. Yeah. I think I watched the rogue cut once. I've never been a huge fan of the Fox version of Rogue. She just doesn't embody. I mean, it's its own version, right? So it's not the cartoon version. It's not the comic version. It's it's its own thing, and she's never been a character that I totally loved.
Yeah, I can get behind you on that. I was certainly disappointed that she didn't have the Miss Marvel powers that she had in, say, the X-Men cartoon.
Yeah. Not an easy one to explain if she does, though.
It's true. And it was one of those things too. I think it was probably a rights issue in terms of Fox having X-Men characters, but maybe not other Marvel characters, so that they had to explain it and or show her on screen. It wouldn't have been so easy. Nowadays, Disney owns everyone, and they can put whoever they like in there.
Yeah, I mean, they could have done it without having to say anything but Miss Marvel. It could have just been that it was that she had an incident with another character, and she's, got those additional abilities.
That's true.
But they didn't. Even there really isn't an appearance of her in the comics as the non-Carol Danvers version. Like, she does it in her first page,
Right,
of her comics. So we have never really gotten just Power Thief Rogue. We've always gotten the whole package with the extra flight and super strength power set. Oh yeah. Hank says the MCU has an uphill battle casting the X-Men. Yeah, I don't even know how we could get into that. There are so many good actors out there, and there's also an opportunity for some fresh takes, which is kind of exciting to see. Like, okay, now that we can get over a lot of our cultural baggage, we can, like, the door is open for all sorts of fun and interesting casting. So I wonder what they're going to do. But man, oh man, is it going to be hard to top some of those choices. Obviously, the worst one to try and beat is Hugh Jackman.
Mm-hmm.
But bring it on.
Yeah, Hughes had a good run. It's time for somebody to take the mantle, I think.
David Cutler says, Jason and I agree about very little for two X-heads who like all the same music. I think we actually agree on a lot. I think we agree on a lot, David. I think a lot of my opinions are formed in an uninformed way, just on like and dislike, just general impression. And when given the opportunity to reflect and think deeper, my opinions often change. But a lot of, I think, both of our taste in things is childhood, right? So, who your favorite artist is when you're 12 often stays with you all the way through. So most of our differences in opinion, David, I think are just our youthful frame of reference. But our values, I think, are much more closely aligned. Our just biases from our histories are different, which is part of the fun of it all. But you do have great taste in music, David. Cutler, that is. Pretorius, I don't even know. Chuck asks, Jason, how would you rank the X films? I would rank them by which ones I want to watch most often. Or which ones impacted me the most. So probably number one for me is Logan. That's the only X-Men movie to ever make me feel the things I felt, which is lots of sadness and anger and all the good things. I had more intense feelings watching Logan than any other movie in the bunch. Probably the most fun one for me, if we're going to include the Deadpool movies, Deadpool 2 is a lot of fun. Deadpool 1's a lot of fun. Deadpool and Wolverine is a lot of fun. X2 I still find is one of the most watchable of the bunch. Days of Future Past. Dark Phoenix is really hard to watch. X3 really hard to watch. Same screenwriter, by the way. X-Men Apocalypse I find tough at times, but I still watch it because I like to see the different characters. And First Class I enjoy. I just wish it was with more X-Men and less I don't know what to say. I wish the team was more X-teamy. What did I leave out? X-Men 1 I like. New Mutants is a really good pilot for a TV show. Edit that thing down to 60 minutes, please, or even 44. What am I leaving out? Oh, I really love I love The Wolverine, the one where he goes to Japan. I love the mood of that movie. So even though we've talked about the third act being a bit of a mess, I still think there's a lot to enjoy in that movie. Except for Hugh Jackman's wig in the first act. Can't stand that shit.
I didn't hear anything about X-Men Origins Wolverine. How do you feel about that?
Hard to watch.
Mm.
Very hard to watch.
Agreed.
I actually saw it first in its previs. There was a version that leaked. I think maybe one of my kids was just born at that time. So my son's 2009, my daughter 2011. I don't remember what year that movie is, but it might have been where I wasn't in theaters for about a year. And so I downloaded a unfinished cut of that movie. And any of the CGI scenes were just like, they were obviously unfinished, but it made the movie very hard to enjoy when the special effects were so bad. Okay.
Some of that CGI didn't get much better.
Yes. Hank says the score for Days is awesome. I have to go back and watch it again and pay attention to the score. Mass says, watching you guys draw is making me want to draw.
Get
Mass,
on it.
Get on it. There you go. Start drawing. Here we go. Hank says he's literally watching popcorn. I mean, eating popcorn and watching. So yeah, that's good. Ali says, Massimo, same. I literally pulled out my sketchbook just before you posted that. I'm going to have to stop reading the chat because I'm not drawing. And David's being David. This is great. David says, I think Robert Downey Jr. should play the X-Men.
All of them?
He could do it. He's got the range. Katie says, also eating popcorn and watching. Allie's making fun of me. She says, Jason, are you disagreeing with him, meaning David? Are you disagreeing with him about how much you disagree? Yes, I am. David says, oh yeah, I'm a Playboy man baby for sure. The leaked version of Origins, David says, is the only one I've seen all the way through. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. And Massimo agreed on The Wolverine. Origins is mostly a miss, but some good elements. I like Taylor Kitsch's Gambit, though. Yeah, that was the whole movie was a big miss for me. I had a really tough time. I have a tough time with the idea of Logan as James Howlett. I find it's a narrative I don't think is important. I don't think it informs the hero he is. And if it doesn't inform the hero that he is, then it shouldn't be part of the story. Like, it doesn't add any content. I think it's just continuity pablum. I'm sorry if that offends you. Not you specifically, any individual, but just in general. I don't mean to offend, but I don't think it adds. So, just to tie it back to the show that we do every week here, Wolverine's mysterious past has not made a single appearance in the first 10 years of Wolverine's comics. And I find that if you can do 10 years of monthly comics with a character and have an element not part of it, it probably isn't that essential. So I'm cool with, Wolverine being whoever, but I don't think that the story of him being James Howlett added anything to the character that I love. And that's fine if it added for you. Cool. It did not add for me. So the movie relied on it a little too heavily. And Liev Schreiber's Sabretooth just kept calling him Jimmy the whole movie, which I hate. Don't call him Jimmy the whole movie. Come on, man. His name's not Jimmy.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer of the mysterious character should stay mysterious.
Yes.
If I can get a little Star Warsy, I didn't need to see Boba Fett ever without his helmet. He was cool because he looked cool, and I didn't know anything about him. As soon as he took off the helmet and gave him a backstory, I stopped caring.
Maybe that's because you have a cold heart.
That's probably it, yeah.
So if we were okay, so I'm I take the position that Mando is Boba Fett,
Mm.
not in continuity. Just the spirit of the show Mandalorian is who Filoni and Favreau felt Boba Fett was when they were kids. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they even talked about how that movie or that show was just them playing with toys.
Yes.
You know, the
Yeah.
toys that they grew up playing with, and yeah, they're just making stories with their what 3 3/4 inch Kenner
Yep.
figures.
They're 5 POA, 3 3/4. Yeah. So if Mando is Boba Fett, then it took up until what he had his basically got his bell rung really hard in the season finale for him to take his mask off, and it was
Yeah.
a meaningful moment, and I was okay with that one. You know, I didn't need to see Pedro Pascal uh, bloody and bloated. Like I didn't need that scene, but I get it. Like it made sense for the narrative. Um, then I think also with Boba Fett, maybe they wanted to do service to Tamura Morrison. Like if they're going to have
Mhm.
this guy play the role, we better show his face. Like it's part of the brand to give this guy his screen time, and I get it. I didn't have an issue with it, but I agree it makes Boba Fett much less cool if we see him. So that all being said, I did not want to know about Wolverine's uh, frontier, not frontier, but his past, especially telling a story like the story of him being this sickly kid. I don't feel was particularly inspired. I think it just felt like it was a, like interesting by juxtaposition. Like, oh, you all know him as invulnerable. Well, what if he was? What if he was actually sickly? But I don't know if that's actually a good story. Maybe it is a good story. I'm not sure, but I didn't dig it.
I don't even know that I read it. I remember it coming out and just not being interested, you know, like it I just wanted Wolverine to be cool and not know who he was.
Yeah,
Because that was
and
the character. That's where
yep,
once we take that away, it I don't know, it ruins the mystique. I'm gonna die on that hill.
I'm cool with that. I will watch you die on that hill. I will run away to live to fight another day. In Wolverine Origins, like in the book, he also uh, is in love with a woman named Rose, and that is the explanation for like why he loves Jean Grey, is because she's also a redhead like Rose, and it just not everything has to be a cycle, you know, or repeating like an echo from everyone's past. Sometimes you can just love someone because of who they are. So, yeah,
Yeah, sometimes things happen when you're younger that don't repeat later on when you're an adult, and that's
yes.
okay.
That
Yeah, I
story
think
also posited that the reason Wolverine wore plaid is because his like mentor wore plaid. It was all just like there was nothing about him that was actually him that he earns over time. It was all just he's an echo of this other guy.
it's kind of the folly of or prequels. You know, you feel like you need to justify every important or even seemingly important thing about a character.
Yeah, like why Han Solo is called a Han Solo.
Yeah,
Remember that?
I
It's so stupid. Oh man. Chuck says to you, Dave, he's like, I'm curious how you were deciding which bit to do next.
I'm avoiding the fine details and just trying not to run my hand over the wedding. That's pretty much it.
That's fair.
And I was getting into the feathering a little bit, so just felt like pulling those lines.
Do you want to talk at all about the tool that you're using?
Sure, I am using kind of a traditional inking tool. It's a, don't know if it'll go in focus. It's a Raphael Kolinsky #1 brush. So it's a sable hair brush. I think it comes from a real animal. And
Yes, sable.
oh, and uh, it keeps a really, really tight point, which is nice. It holds a lot more ink than a synthetic brush does. It has a greater rate of absorption, so I don't have to go back and dip over and over again. And it's, I would say this or the Winsor Newton Series 7 is probably like what would be known as the go-to brush for brush inkers. And I've been mostly a brush pen guy for quite a long time. And I've been trying to branch out recently and try some tools that I'm not super comfortable with because I find, you know, doing things that make you uncomfortable make you better.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because if we're gonna just sit and do what feels easy, you're not gonna grow. So that's
That's
what.
for sure. Amen.
So I've been doing a lot of like warm up inking with it. I've been picking, just finding professional comic artists' work whom I admire. You can usually find high res pencils online pretty easily, and I find those, I print them off, and I just practice inking over top of them when I'm not inking my own stuff. So I use those to get comfortable with the brush. Sometimes you kind of got to build your way to the confidence in your line to throw a nice thick to thin. And yeah, I've been live streaming some of that too on my Instagram lately. Just my warm up stuff, nothing that I'm doing that's going to go see print.
Hey, um, yes, that's all. Yeah, I hear you, and that's an awesome idea to use some pencils that you find online. So, which artists are you finding their work? Like, who are you going after to ink over?
I have one on my board right now. I'll show you that I've been jumping back and forth on. I have Chris Campana. Chris Campana. He, I think you were tabled near him at Toronto Comic Con this year.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
next to him.
yeah, and so I have a spawn that I've been working on with him. This is all with the Raphael Kolinsky one. And then if you'll permit me, I'm going to jump in flat file for a second. And prior to that, I was doing a Kirby Silver Surfer. So
I'm assuming. Well, okay. I don't actually know that image, but it looks like it's later Kirby.
78.
Okay, there you go. So it's after his return to Marvel, probably around the time he's working on that Silver Surfer graphic novel, if that's not for it or maybe it was a commission. So correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, does Royer ink that one, or does Sinnett ink that one? The graphic novel.
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I don't
Oh
know.
man, someone in the chat if you know the answer off the top of your head. So I love, obviously I love Kirby stuff, and everyone who loves Kirby stuff always has a favorite inker or 10 over Kirby, and so that one's a really fun one to try because his inkers can be so graphic, like
Mhm.
really great shapes and lines, and really really cool. That's neat to see in different rendering styles. That's very cool.
Yeah. I've been trying to find just a variety of different artists to ink over. I find I learn a lot about construction and lighting, playing over people's pencils, and it challenges me to create different lines than I
Yeah.
would normally. it's a breaking the comfort zone thing. Like I draw the way that I draw, and I draw from my own comfort in that sense because I know what I can handle. So I will lay my lines in a particular way for that. Like that spawn piece, I don't usually do cross hatching, but it's full of it.
Right.
And that's part of the reason why I took them, why I printed that one out to do it. It's like I'm gonna tackle some cross hatching with a brush. Let's see how that goes. And I've incorporated a little bit into my Cyclops here because I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
I feel a little bit more comfortable doing that now.
that's good because it looks awesome.
Thank you.
Ali says, I respect the let the mysterious be mysterious POV, but disagree. All opinion, of course, so just mine. Characters are meant to grow. Yes, some characters make dumb decisions. Yeah, there you go. Characters can grow for sure. For sure. And maybe some characters are never meant to be the lead character, right? Maybe we're supposed to leave certain characters as supporting, and they're there in the service of the larger story and of the protagonist, and those characters can remain mysterious. Like maybe I go to not just Boba Fett and not just even Han Solo as the scoundrel who was mysterious in the first couple movies, and Wolverine, but also for me Snake Eyes is one of those characters, and he was not the main character in G.I. Joe. It was an ensemble, and having him be an ensemble with characters like Stalker and Scarlet and Duke, etc., allowed for one guy to just be a mysterious silent character. The second you make them the only focus, maybe that does ruin, because the story was never supposed to be about them specifically. So perhaps Wolverine's not meant to be the protagonist all the time, and we can leave him mysterious, as with Boba Fett. So let's see. Katie chimes in and says, I must know all the backstories of all the characters always. Mystery is cool and all, but dang it, I want to know all the little details. Maybe this can just be achieved through fan fiction. There's nothing wrong with wanting to know more. I mean, I was hungry and still am for certain characters when they really sit with me. When I was a kid, for sure, those Marvel handbooks, the Marvel Universe, I read through all of them. I wanted to know every character's origin. There was a series in Marvel, if you don't know, back in around '86 called Marvel Saga, and it was telling from in 25 issues they retold the entire Marvel universe in chronological order from the creation of the universe, Fantastic Four, the introduction of everybody, like first like World War II and all that stuff as well, up until the arrival of Silver Surfer by issue 25 of the series. And every time they would add in, like, oh, this is when Iceman discovers his powers, or this is when whoever, like, I was giddy to find all that information. So there's a part of me that definitely walks that path too and wants to know everyone's origin. But some characters aren't that interesting. So who knows? Ali says, but if Chris Claremont had never broken Magneto out of the evil for evil's sake mold, he wouldn't be as near as interesting as he is, for example. One of my favorite characters. 100% Ali. That might have been a case of like also audiences and our perspective on villainy has really grown. It really grew over the 20th century from being mustache twirling, tied into the tracks villains who are just pure evil to having sympathetic villains who want to know where they come from, where they're not just a monster, they're complicated, and that's an ongoing process and definitely part of a 20th century literature shift and film as well. And then Ali and Katie are talking about the multiverse, multiple things being true. Chuck says, I think there's probably a distinction between filling out a character and treat backstory as nothing more than Easter eggs that connect some aspects of the character you know. And they're having the whole conversation here. I'm going to head back to the board, but there you go. Look at that. Massimo says, would anyone dare say Vince Coletta as in a favorite Kirby inker? Tom Scioli likes a lot of Vince Coletta stuff. On his Thor work, I do not like Vince Coletta over Kirby compared to everybody else. Compared to the other inkers, that is. I love, probably in this order, Chick Stone is maybe, okay, no. Mike Royer, I love the Chick Stone over Captain America stuff that he does. maybe Senate third. I don't know. Not sure. But definitely one is Mike Royer is my guy. My goodness, you guys. Okay. And Matters to You says, agrees with the G.I. Joe analogy. Thanks, man. All right. I got to get inking here. Let's get on this. I'm always tempted to just fill in some blacks, but I get scared too. Let's do some. I'm in the mood. And I'm bringing out this tool, my Pentel brush pen.
Oh, yeah.
Cover some area fast. Okay, I'm going to keep my head down for a bit, so if I don't read your comments out loud, please forgive me.
So was Vince Coletta the guy famously known for erasing Kirby pencils because he didn't feel like inking them? Is that who I'm thinking of?
Well, the only part I would disagree with is the conjecture that he didn't feel like it, because we don't know.
That's true.
But is he famous for erasing Kirby pencils and not inking what Kirby drew? Yes. It might have been a talent, like an ability issue, like in the time he had available. Maybe he wasn't able to get his work done, so he found shortcuts. Maybe he didn't care. Who knows? Depending which YouTube channel you watch, there are stories that suggest that he was connected, and so nobody would ever give him a hard time about not completing work.
Like industry connected or mob connected?
Mob connected.
Whoa. Okay.
But again, that's just me referencing what another YouTube channel has said. Both the cartoonist kayfabe guys talk about him in depth at times, as does Chris Pierce on Comic Tropes. But I think Kirby's pencils in that time period are just so strong that the work can like endure subpar inking. Dave, are your kids doing camp, or are they home?
My oldest, Wolf, is in camp. He's doing a cool camp with the zoo this week, which is pretty exciting, I think. So, him being an 8-year-old, he doesn't love to tell me about his days there. That, you got to kind of pry information out of them.
Yeah.
But he finally told me a little bit about it today. He got to go on the, the Metro Toronto Zoo, he got to go on the train. But he quickly reminded me that it's not an actual train because it doesn't go on tracks. It's more of a car.
Does he mean the Zoomobile?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the thing that, tours you around the zoo and you can get around faster.
It's just a golf cart with many sections. Yeah, the Zoomobile.
Yeah, I don't think I've ridden on it since I was a kid. So I remember it as a train.
Well, there was a monorail when we were kids.
Oh, okay. Maybe I did remember it correctly. Did they get rid of that then, I guess?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so oldest is zoo camp, youngest is still in daycare. But he starts kindergarten this year.
That's awesome.
Wild. And you said your kids are 2009, so that's like 15.
Yeah, I've got a 15 and a 13.
So probably not camps.
Well, my son did his leadership training camp this summer.
Oh, cool.
And then got to be a counselor at a hockey camp, which was probably his dream come true.
Good for him.
And my daughter did some traveling, which was a dream come true. And now we all have August off together.
Awesome. Any big plans? Family vacay?
Um, a little bit. We're gonna have some time at a family cottage, and I'm gonna still try and get as much comic work done as I can, which will always be a problem because with everybody
Problem.
home, yeah, with everybody home, I'm popular in my house. They want to hang out with dad.
Yeah, I'm burdened with that as well.
My daughter and I are going through The Office right now.
Oh, the show. Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, there's kind of nothing else I'd rather do than sit with my hilarious daughter and watch good TV.
Is your daughter older or younger? Which is the oldest?
She's the 13-year-old. She just has an outstanding sense of humor.
Nice.
So she's good company with movies and TV.
Do we have a new Group of 7 comic to look forward to soon?
Yes, there are actually 3 coming out relatively back to back to back.
Hold
Uh,
up.
it's been a
3?
long time coming. Yeah. So there's one that's a short story, and then issues 9 and 10 are coming fast.
Nice.
Yeah. I've got some pressure in a certain part of my body to get those books out because I want I want to go back to France.
Oh. They tell you if you put out 3 books, they'd invite you back or what?
The process of going back is like very bureaucratic, and I don't know when we're going to know if we're going back or if maybe just me. I have no idea. But you know how long it takes to make a book and then have it printed.
Yes.
So I have to proceed without knowing if I'm going. But the idea of going back there without having a book in French does not feel good.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I'm really trying to push to get that done, and have something in French that I'm really proud of. Because as much as I like our first graphic novel, I made it between 2017 and 2020, and I'm not the same artist that I was 5 years ago. So I know a lot more about how to make books and all the steps in between. So I really don't want to go back unless I have something modern that is more representative and puts us in better light with potential publishing partners.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to see new Group of 7.
Me too. Ali says we need a close-up of the X-Cam.
Yeah.
Hold on. Chuck says, Jason, would you leave Chris behind in order to go to France? Yes.
In a heartbeat.
I would go back to France any time, any day. Okay, I'll show you what I've got here. Let me just change the view for a minute, Dave.
No problem.
This is where I'm at so far.
Yeah.
I went in before and actually inked with white media over top of where both these guys with their arms intersect with the logo. I was saying to you before, Dave, before we came on, the amount of space that's actually available in this cover is pretty small across the middle. This logo is set quite low. The stupid Marvel Now tag here. So I'm noticing there's some opportunities to draw other things. Maybe I'll do explosions after. I don't know, but I'm going to just try and ink Deadpool and Wolverine today and see what else is available in the future. And if inspiration comes up for perhaps other X-Force type characters, maybe, Colossus, maybe Negasonic, maybe Cable, just something from the other Deadpool movies that Wolverine would be a good fit in with those characters. I don't know. Maybe we'll see what else I put in there, but possibly explosions, possibly speed lines. I don't know, but lots of extra space. But my mind has been on France so much. Like I started working on this, this piece,
Oh,
something more representative of because our characters are in France, and I just keep thinking about, having them in France during the war and showing them, because having a piece that shows to the French people more that the characters are there during the war. So I've been playing with this a lot and figuring out how to get the grass and the layers, and oh my god, it's been fun. But anyway, lots of stuff going on. So would I leave Chris? I would travel on my own if that's really, I guess, really what the important question is. We had such a good time last year, and I feel more independent, or at least that I could do it now that I kind of know what to expect. Last year, I really was grateful to have his company as just having your buddy there, but he helped with a lot of the travel plans and the logistics, and now I know what to expect, and I'd be happy to go even if he couldn't go. But I would never leave him behind. He might not be able to go. Like, what if we have the opportunity and he can't get work off? So I would still go. Thanks, Chuck. I'm glad you like it. I'm digging making it. So, but if Chris can't come back, I'll be very sad. I mean, maybe I can't go. Who knows? We'll see.
so Jason, that piece you just showed, Peregrines, is that going to be a cover?
I don't know, and I'm not being coy. In the last, I'd say 3 months, I've created a lot of Peregrines and Group of 7 imagery that didn't have a purpose. So it might just be promotional images, it might be additional content, it might just be pieces for sale. I'm not sure what they are, but I get these ideas for a picture, and it could be a cover, but I don't necessarily have a story to go with it. It could be one of those unrelated kind of covers. When we had that era in Marvel and DC where they just would do these pinup kind of style covers. I just think about Frank Quietly's run on X-Men. The first bunch of issues, the covers were not related to the content. They were just cool images. So maybe it'll be something like that. I don't know yet. It's a more general, it's just the characters standing in a field in France with leaves blowing through and the war in the background. So maybe it would be a cover of a French edition. Maybe it would be a cover of a collected. I don't know. I'm open-minded. Can we talk about, since you're using a brush, can we talk about deadline versus lively line?
Yeah, sure.
Do you ever think about using having a deadline for your holding lines as opposed to a nice lively brush line that varies?
I do. So I used to ink almost exclusively with microns, or I think they were probably the Statler fine liners that I used before then. And then I would, fill blacks with a brush pen. But I ended up just trying to get, these thick to thin lines with that tool, which is not really what it's meant for. And so I'd end up going back and thickening up lines here and there, or creating these kind of faux feathers. And I would see artists, I'm a big Paul Pope fan, and I would see with it, he would sling ink with a brush and see the energy and movement he was able to create with it, and the liveliness, as you said. and just realizing I can't do that with one of those tools. I think there's a place for it for sure, and I will use it in sort of like maybe more mechanical things. I did a 4-pager in Ghost Agents Metropolis last year, and in it I had a very detailed drawing of the Maria robot, of all of her innards and everything, tons of wires and gears, very Windsor Smith Machine Man kind of thing. And that was all just I think an O1 micron,
Right.
because it's for those kind
That
of
one right here.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Because for that kind of drawing, you want something that's, you can a little bit more forgiving than a brush. A brush, you have to be so delicate to get a fine line on it. Whereas the micron, it's not really going to spread. And yeah, I wasn't super confident with the brush at that time, and I'm still working on building that confidence with my brush. It's I think art is a never-ending education. Always going to be trying to pull something new with it. Here we want to go. Now, I've seen you ink with a brush before. I think even, something similar to what I'm using today, but I've also seen you use the microns and stuff. So when you're doing Peregrines or a group of 7 comic, are you inking with microns? Are you inking with a brush? What's the tool of the trade for you? Are you
I change it up.
Yeah?
Yeah, I go through phases where like one interests me a lot and I'm going to want to explore. And I change it up for a bit and try something different depending on. I'm still trying to figure out, like, this sounds so lame, but who I am and um, what line is part of my artistic identity, and um, what tools and what shapes and what feelings are evoked by those tools, and how they represent the story that Chris and I are trying to tell.
Yeah.
So, early on, I committed to brush and didn't learn fast enough about bad brushes. And, I committed to ink wash without understanding how to use ink wash, all those fun things of, early days. And a lot of my artistic influences do things completely differently than that. So I'm pretty curious about, that's why I mentioned to you about the deadline, artists like Mignola and Mazzucchelli, and how their outlines are completely dead lines. They have
Mm-hmm.
almost no variance to them, and it's about how they spot inks, like spot blacks within the shapes that create the weight as opposed to the line weight. And I'm really interested in figuring out sort of which camp I'm in. And of course, I've talked about my love of Kirby, and I have a huge love for Darwin Cook, and Cook is a brush slinger,
Yeah.
as well as a brush pen. So but I have to figure out who am I. I feel it's so silly to say these questions, but they actually are really important for us to figure out as storytellers. What is our artistic voice? And I'm in the process of still figuring that one out. So for a
Yeah.
while, I like to play with some tools, and sometimes I like to play with others. But for the rest of the group of 7 stuff that I'm working on, it's all going to be like varied outlines. I'm not doing any deadline art in the interiors, and still sticking with ink wash until these stories are done. But when that's finished and we go on to the next book, we'll see.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the beauty of comics too, is we don't, some artists like to draw in their one style for every story. You know, Jim Lee draws Jim Lee, but depending on what the story demands, you
Yeah.
can really change up your style, and either through the tools that you use or your approach to the artwork. And if it benefits the story, all the better.
Yeah.
I look at someone like, I think Jim Rugg is a chameleon of an artist. He's
Great
the kind of
example.
guy that looks at the story, looks at the tone, and changes up the way he draws to suit that book, as opposed to making the book kind of conform to him.
Right. He also goes with what he's interested in at the time.
Oh, definitely.
So if he says, I've been reading a lot of manga, and so I want to play with speed lines and screen tone, like, I get it.
Yeah, it's kind of, follow your interests at the time, and don't conform to one style just because that's the way you did stuff before.
Right. I just always have to watch out because Arthur Adams' influence is ever lingering. And that is just a road to ruin.
Yes, I hear you on that. Arthur Adams is he's a wonderful artist, but I think other than maybe Nick Bradshaw, no one else can really do Arthur Adams other than Arthur Adams.
Yep.
I think Nick is a great and almost close second. He has grown more Arthur Adams over the years, but to the point where sometimes I've mistaken his covers for Art Adams' work.
My quick detection of that is when I look at the cover, if I think the composition is rock solid, it's Adams. If it's like, oh, that's cool, then it's Bradshaw.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Adams is a genius composer as well. Him and Mignola, right? Those two guys are buddies from way back.
Yeah.
Two West Coast guys, Bay Area buddies. And they're both
Yeah.
masters of composition.
Mignola's composition is something to be studied, I think. I mean, you look at maybe some of his earlier stuff and it's got a lot of Frazetta influence, but there's a reason he pulled that. Frazetta's composition was also unmatched. And so he's a good one to be studying when you're trying to build up that composition. And composition is one of the areas I really feel I need to study more of, and I constantly looking at successful image composers to try to break down what they're doing and how it's working and why it's working.
Well, Mignola's top of that list.
Mm-hmm. No, I've got a couple of his art books, and I've been, a big fan of his for a couple of decades now.
Let's see what's happening in the chat, if I missed anything. Matters to You says, you changed it from last week. Dynamic. Do a cable in there with Sabretooth. Give it an X-Force Weapon X vibe. Okay, it's a different picture than last week. So this one's here. And last week's is there. I finished it. So I did change it in a way. Massimo says, I recently did a 2-page short story that was very influenced by Sin City. Lots of negative space. That's very cool. See, there's another example of like a guy who goes from that traditional brush outline, in Miller's inking early on, and eventually by the time he gets to Sin City, again, those outlines are deadline, and it's the use of black all over the place that creates the mess. It's I'm wondering like how much of it is like maybe it's an age thing. Like maybe just when you get to 45, you just stop doing lively lines. I don't know. I'm just joking around, of course, but
I do find that if some artists you watch as they age, they begin to reduce in terms of the amount of lines that they put on a page to
yes,
describe an image. They're able to continually grow and understand forms more and more and more so that they can continue to reduce. Not everyone. I think Art Adams has gone in the opposite direction of that, but it still works for him because of who he is and what he does. Like that's him, that's his style. But I think, if we're still talking Mignola, he's a great example of that as well. Just reduce, reduce, reduce. I think even like Jaime Hernandez, another one whose work just seems to get tighter and more simple.
mm-hmm.
Goes along. And maybe that's the goal. I don't know. I'm, like yourself, I'm still trying to discover what my place is with my art. Maybe I'm going to get more lines in there. Maybe I'm going to get less. Maybe they're going to become deadlines again.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, if you've got that, I know you're a fan of artist editions, right?
Yeah.
Do you have the Sin City
No,
Library Edition, Gallery Edition, whatever it's called?
I do not. Do you?
Do I do not have many artist editions. They're usually a bit outside of my budget. But the Sin City one was one I had to purchase. Sin City was a formative book for me when I was a teenager. It was probably my introduction to crime comics,
Right.
which may be one of my favorite genres now in modern comics. So yeah, it was when I really needed to see and to be able to get up close and personal with those pages, especially considering like once you see it, you see how much he worked with white media, almost on par with how much he was using black. He would lay so much in and then just erase it all, you know. But it made for a better image and a better composition, and it served that story well. And that level of sort of understanding his own art and being able to strip away even after doing it, you put in the time and effort to make that image only to take a bunch away. I don't know how he did it. And it's huge too. Like
Yeah.
it's toddler sized. It is the height and weight of a small child.
So when it comes to the price point, yeah, those things are they're cost prohibitive. And I've expressed to my loved ones that that's the only kind of gift I want. So they've been really generous. When it comes time for birthdays, my family members team up and they get me sometimes an artist edition here or there. Um, and then I try to stay loyal to my local store
Hmm.
where I'm already paying a membership fee. So if they have a discount, I make use of it. I buy an artist edition. And that really helps too. And then, when I sell art, that's usually what I do with the money earned is go buy myself a new textbook.
That's a good way to look at it.
So every time someone buys a drawing or whatever, those are my funds for artist editions. And I've only been collecting them since the pandemic. But the artisan editions are the ones that are really affordable, right? They on
Hmm.
Amazon they can come down to $55 or something like that. And if you're a comic book collector, like you could be dropping that sometimes every week. So I'll hold off on weekly books, um, and get artist editions or artisan editions when I can. But we are in a, like Rugg and Piscor have been saying, like we're in a golden era for fans in terms of what original art we have access to that was totally isolated before and in one person's collection. Now, thanks to Scott Dunbier and folks at IDW and now his own new publishing company called Act 4,
Hmm.
we're getting more and more art scanned at, as you know, high res and then bound beautifully. So the stuff is unbelievable and really hard to pass up on when I come across something. So I've got a good little collection going. It's a lot of fun, but I'm also a really big fan of the
Yes.
essentials. I mean, this one has Kirby and Steranko, Captain America, like
Uh,
yeah, as well as Buscema and Ramita. Yeah, which is
yeah,
awesome to see.
those books, if you can't get the artist editions, getting those ones with that stark black and white, um, probably some of the best reproductions of some of those old comics I've seen, just
Yeah,
because, you're not dealing with these updated computer versions of the colors. You can really dig in and see the artwork. I've got a good chunk of the Essential X-Men and Essential Spider-Man,
nice.
and you get some of those annuals in some of those um, Essential X-Men where you're getting black and white Arthur Adams work or Michael Gold. Did he come in on one of those?
He did.
And then black and white Paul Smith, another great deadline artist.
Good point.
Yeah, amazing stuff to see. Because I don't know about you, but growing up, I started going to cons when I was maybe 13, 14 years old, coming to like the Hobby Star Toronto shows. And I had never seen professional original pages in my life before that. And, first time I got to flip through somebody's portfolio, my jaw dropped. Like I couldn't believe the artwork. It's so much nicer and bigger than what you see, reprinted on newsprint.
Yeah, that was my breaking point with Kirby too. Was everything I'd ever seen of Kirby was not just reprinted, but like fourth reprints, like photocopies of, I don't even know, just they were garbage reprints. And in maybe 2006 or 7 or 8, they came out with that book. Mark Evanier came out with Kirby King of Comics. And in Kirby King of Comics, there was some original art scanned, and I'd never seen his stuff uncolored, printed at a high quality. And I was like, oh, now I get it. Like, now I get why everyone's been saying his name as being, this amazingly influential guy. Like, seeing his artwork in its sort of purest form, it blew me away. And ever since then, all I can do is I just want to look at more Kirby all the time. It's a great book to see his stuff. I got another really good artisan edition. It's called Kirby Pencils and Inks. Do you have that one, or have you seen it?
I have not seen it, no.
Do you know what it is?
I imagine it's Pencils and Inks by Kirby.
Smart ass. I'm going to change the view, so pardon me if anyone here gets mad. They're going to miss some amazing Dave moments. Let's just do it this way so we can still watch Dave if you want to. Okay. Kirby, Pencils and Inks from IDW, out of print. It is when he moved out to California and was working on DC properties in the early 70s. This book contains number 1 of the Demon, Commandy, and Omac. And when he was out in LA, he got the chance, like he had an old photocopier in the house, and his son, I think, or maybe just his assistants, would photocopy his pencils. Oops, pardon me. That's a map, a secret map. Would photocopy his pencils, seen there, and then his inks as well. So you could see both.
Was he inking himself?
No, Royer is inking him.
Okay.
So every page, you get to see both the pencils and then the inks side by side on a 2-page spread. There. And when you get to certain pages, it's like unbelievable. But, anyway.
Yeah.
Volume 2 is coming out in December. It is, I believe, his work back at Marvel at the end of the 70s. So it'll be, I think, an issue of Eternals, maybe Black Panther. I don't know. I can't remember what else. But it's him back at Marvel at the end of the 70s. Volume 2 of this is coming out. And when I got my Indigo gift cards for my birthday, pre-order that thing, so that's coming the holiday season. I can't wait. So this is a great book if you can find it. Not a huge artist edition size, but artisan, and it's phenomenal. The work on the Demon is amazing. Oh, the Commandy, the famous 2-page spread where he's like going across the ocean with the Statue of Liberty. Like, this is here, right?
Yeah. Wow.
It's so cool. I've seen the original inks of this.
That's the kind of stuff I need to see at full size. The screen doesn't quite do it justice.
No, of course.
And even I bet the book versus the originals, but still, yeah.
Yes,
I kind of like the idea of the artisans because I don't have a bookshelf that will fit those artists editions. Like, they sit on top of my bookshelves.
You have to lose a shelf.
I don't have that kind of real estate right now.
Yeah, I do. Thankfully,
so I've got my Sin City up there, my Todd McFarlane Spider-Man.
Oh, beautiful.
That was similar to yourself. I got a gift card from a very happy client, and I found the McFarlane one that was on Amazon. Yeah, I was torn because I wanted that one, and the Michael Golden one was also on sale.
All right. So let's make a plan to meet up, and I'll bring you the Michael Golden one to look at. It is mind-boggling.
Yeah,
because he does every single thing in it the hard way. He's not using white media most of the time. If he wants to draw the stars, he's drawing around the white. Like,
insane.
He's on another level. Ali says, have either of you worked with light boxes?
Yes.
They are this thin now, Ali,
Yes.
right? They're incredible.
They're
Mine has
LED. They're
tape
so
all over
bright.
it. I save my tape for pinning stuff down or taping stuff down, like my
Mine has
little
a
pieces.
magnet clip, Jason. A magnet
Oh, that's cool. I dig.
holds it in place.
Well, I do a lot of ink washing, so I need to tape things down to prevent it rippling.
No, fair enough.
Yeah. So I love using Lightbox. I find, for me, I like traditional and I like the iterative process. So I like sketching and working on a piece of paper. It gets messy. I like to draw hard with pencil and I don't have to worry about erasing it. So then lightboxing or lightboarding right on top after with a clean sheet of really smooth Bristol and then inking straight to that over my really rough pencils that are underneath. I find that is a process I love. I love to not have to erase. And if I make a mistake, I can either white media or start again. So I'm a big fan of the lightboard. I love it.
Yeah, I do a similar process, but I start digital usually. So I've got, you can see back there, I've got a nice big tablet for drawing on. That's my in studio one, and then I have a small one that I take home with me.
I got to get one of those.
Yeah, it's great for coloring. Awesome
Yeah.
for coloring.
I have a modest sized one and it hurts.
But it's the same thing. My pencils are super, super rough, and I'll either print those out in black and white and then lightbox, or print them like this in blue line and ink over top of it.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Eli, what's up?
Eli, welcome back from San Diego, my friend. He says, I just fell asleep while listening to you in my favorite chair. I had a dream. Jason was teaching my family about comics at my family reunion next week. Hey, where and when I'll be there. Assuming you're back in on the East Coast, I'll head back. I'll head down and I'll go to your family reunion and I'll talk comics with anyone who'll listen. Hope you're doing well. You mentioned that your feet were sore from all that standing at Comic-Con, but man, what a great experience! Like watching Cosmic Lion Productions grow over the last 5 years has been such a joy. And so, Eli, congrats on all the success, and got to get you back on the show to talk too. I'd love to talk X-Men with you and have you back on again. It's been 50 issues since you were here, so we got to get him back in there too.
Yeah.
Back to Ali's thing. She said, is there any little trick you observed that you catch yourself aping? Example, I can't stop doing John Romita Jr. forelocks. It's so easy for the flow of the rest of the hair. If we could all have that lift. Any little trick that I've observed that I catch myself aping? Tons of things.
Yeah.
Too many things. Probably like Bruce Timm animation things. Certain lines. Yeah, probably things from any Bruce Timm drawings. I'm sure I'm aping things and not even being aware of it. For sure. Gary Shipman, hello. How you doing, man? Hope you're doing well too. That gorgeous book. I have a new item from my birthday wish list. There are so many great books to get. You know, we're really, really lucky. Like I said, we're in that a really golden age for fans of original art having access to things. Massimo says, I have the McFarlane one and the Jim Lee X-Men one. Yeah, those are both so much fun. And I've watched those episodes on kayfabe over and over because I don't expect to ever get either one. But I like to see that original art. The Jim Lee, both guys like put a lot of line down. So I find that I like to look at it, but I don't want to learn that. I want to learn like the Mignola, you know, that's, yeah. I'm the Mazzucchelli Batman Year One is coming out any day, and that's the one that I'm really looking forward to. I have the Mazzucchelli Daredevil Born Again, and it's so instructive. But like, you know, then you get, like I said, the artisan edition of Hellboy and Hell. I'm pretty sure this one's still available and not that expensive on Amazon. But when you look at his pages, and it was scanned probably by Mignola, it's scanned really beautifully. You know, let me rephrase. It's probably scanned by Mignola's wife because he's open about not actually knowing how to operate his scanner. But when you look at his pages, you can see the water in his ink. Like you
Yeah.
can see where his brush strokes are, because again, they're not blasting the levels. I think it's his wife named Christine. Like she's doing a really faithful job in scanning his work and not changing the levels. But his work is so instructive for page composition, not just the way he renders, but the way he lays an entire page out. And this whole thing is phenomenal. And then if you're a really big Mignola fan, the back half of Hellboy in Hell has the first pages of Hellboy ever as well. So you
Awesome.
get to see him fighting Anubis. If you know your old, like it's a, what, an 8-pager?
Yeah.
Or a 4-pager, pardon me. Yeah, a 4-pager that was in, I think, a Dark Horse Presents or one of those kinds of things. There's the
I think it was
story.
John Byrne's X-Men, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's in here too, as well as
Oh, yeah.
the one where he fights the head in the jar and the giant cyborg ape. So you're getting like iteration 1 Mignola on Hellboy. Like, you know?
Yeah. And, just reading that book, you can see how he's matured and reduced line weight, or the number of lines used to describe that format.
Yeah, you're kind of spanning 20 plus years in one book. Like it starts at the end and goes back to the beginning. And also the corpse is in here.
Oh, yes.
So, like,
Yeah.
and it's just it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect comics. To see how he does trees and flowers and grass, landscapes, buildings. I mean, yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. We can go on and on about that stuff. What? Jason's guns. He works with heavy boxes. What are you talking about, buddy? What are you talking about? Do you do requests? Like, you mean for drawing? I don't know. No one ever requests anything. So probably, but who knows? It depends what you're asking for. In terms of commissioned art, like if people want to hire me to do art, I'm sure same with you, Dave. We do,
Yep.
when we have time. Eli says the Jim Starlin Cosmic Marvel is glorious. My fave. Trick I Stole. I've done the same. Joe Madmouth for 25 years.
Eli, I think it was you whose pictures I saw from Comic-Con. You had maybe my favorite photo that I saw. It was Daniel Klaus meeting DJ Lance Rock from Yo Gabba Gabba. And Klaus had a gigantic smile on his face. And seeing that was, I didn't go to San Diego, but that was my highlight. My kids really love Yo Gabba Gabba. I don't know. Your kids, Jason, may have been a little too old for Yo Gabba Gabba, but it was a fantastic show. And seeing DJ Lance Rock still rocking the costume as he's at San Diego that's a treat.
So was it really him or was it a guy in cosplay? I assumed it was a cosplayer.
If it was a cosplayer, he was bang on. I don't know. Eli would have to speak to that, because you only really see the back of his head in the photo.
I won't deny. I saw that photo too and thought it was awesome. But my first thought was he was a cosplayer.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I know they are doing a new Yo Gabba Gabba show, which I'm secretly, well, now not so secretly, very excited for, because yeah, the original Yo Gabba Gabba was such a great kid show. It was one of those ones where I actually enjoyed watching it with my kids. They have great musical guests, and like when you have Biz Marquis and Mark Mothersbaugh as regulars on your kids show doing like Biz's beat of the day and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like these are, dude from Devo and the biz, like just that sold me.
So my kids were not too old for it, but I definitely did more laughing out loud while we were watching it than they did. They
Yeah,
were a little more perplexed by it. Like, what is this?
yeah. I think it really reminded me of stuff like Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yeah.
When I
Oh
was a
yeah.
kid. Like that kind of kids show was was the coolest for me. And we're looking for time. Wonder if I think I might get this done by the time we finish.
Well, you'll be ahead of me, but I'm notoriously slow.
I feel I'm pretty slow too. I purposely tried to not do anything overly complicated just so that I might be able to finish on stream. But we'll see. I don't know if my ink will be dry because I'm kind of
Well,
laying it on.
then it doesn't count, Dave.
Come on. Okay. Can we go in overtime? And while we're talking Comic Con and we've been, X-Men show, that's Marvel adjacent. Robert Downey Jr. is Doctor Doom.
Yeah, let's talk. So,
I
what do you think?
I don't know how I feel about it. I think it really depends on their usage of him. Because for Doctor Doom, you know, I don't really want to see him without a mask, or if I do, he's got to be disfigured, right? And I haven't watched the Hall H presentation or anything, so maybe my opinion is invalid. But
Oh, stop.
they, I read that they introduced him as Victor Von Doom and not as a Tony Stark variant or something like that. So do you feel like that means he's actually going to be Victor Von Doom and maybe playing a completely different character, and they're just bringing Doom back, or bringing him back as a new actor? Because it wouldn't be the first time that an actor has played more than one character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right, but it'll be the first time that sure, if we're following the rules, yeah, it wouldn't be the first time, but nothing like this.
Yeah, definitely nothing like this. This is
I mean, he's the face of the franchise. I love the idea. The more I think about it, the more I think it's a playful idea. If you want to make it really comic booky, almost every face that those guys drew back in the day were the same face. So
yeah,
the idea that Iron Man or like Tony Stark looks like Victor Von Doom, it's like, yeah, no problem. That makes total sense. And we all know what a great actor he is and how
oh,
he can ham it up with a ridiculous, uh, you know, Eastern European accent that it's an American anyway, but he can do a great fun voice, and he'll be a ham. So I'm hoping, like you said, we don't see his face. But one of the things in Secret Wars, of course, which is the sixth Avengers movie coming out in 3 years, famously in the comic book, which I know they're not beholden to, like he heals his face and he's unmasked for a good portion of Secret Wars. Um, so maybe they just don't do that, I guess. But I'm all game with, yeah. Let's have some fun. And the brand seems to have needed a bit of an uptick.
yes,
So let's have some fun with it. I don't have any issue.
yeah.
It got
I
us all
think
talking, so I think that's a good thing too.
it certainly has done that, and I've seen some rhetoric of it just being in active desperation on Marvel's end, and I think I think the people spouting that maybe are just we don't know how they're going to use it. We really
Yeah.
don't. and especially with the multiverse in the MCU being what it is, so we will now have seen two actors playing Reed Richards when Fantastic Four comes out next year. So variants don't have to be the same actor. So why can't other actors play other characters?
Yeah, I have no problem with it. I think, again, it's all just for fun.
Who
So
knows?
if it helps us have some fun, then I'm cool.
Yeah, I'm actually probably more excited about seeing the Russos come back to direct again than Downey to come back at acting. Because I think, Winter Soldier changed the game for MCU, and they just kept it going all the way through to Endgame. And I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, I like their collaboration with the screenwriters.
Mhm.
So the screenwriters of Marcus and McFeely wrote Captain America: The First Avenger, Winter Soldier, Civil War, and Infinity War and Endgame. And I want to see them back too, because I think it's that collaboration of the four of them putting their heads together that were the magic thing, as opposed to just the directors or just the writers. So I'm hoping to get everybody back.
Yeah, did they announce the writers?
No, not officially at that event, but they might have put it on. Um, might have been in a press release somewhere. Hopefully, Eli's following up on that. Hold on, he's following up on the photograph. Eli says, "I got that off the Fantagraphics Insta, but that stuff
Oh,
happens all the time, and it was him, meaning it was DJ Lance. He was there for a panel."
that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, DJ Lance. I'm excited for all that MCU stuff. And if it doesn't look great, if it doesn't turn out perfect, it's okay with me too. I'm so grateful for the 10 years that we got of the
Yeah,
MCU that I'm kind of sated, and I don't expect any more.
I mean, if you told 10-year-old me
Yeah.
that what was to come later on, I would never have believed you. When I came from a childhood where there was no Marvel movies, like the fact
Yep.
that it took until 2002, I think, to get a Spider-Man movie. Not for lack of trying. I know there was the TV series and stuff, and I know at one point Canon Films had the rights to make a Spider-Man movie, but they went bankrupt before that happened. There was the talk of James Cameron doing a Spider-Man movie, and then he went and did Titanic instead, I think.
What an idiot.
I know, right? Like that movie amounted to anything.
Yeah. No, I really am. I'm so grateful that we just even got that end game climax. The fact that it even happened is kind of a movie miracle.
Oh, for real? It was the culmination of what, 20, 21 films? That's like James Bond franchise level of getting that many films, but with a fairly consistent actor roster, barring a few recasts, but
all the key pieces,
yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. It just feels like now it's just gravy.
Oh, totally. And I think there's so much out there now that you can kind of pick and choose what you want to watch. I don't think you have to like everything. Maybe
And I don't.
yeah, but I mean, I think the only thing I didn't actually watch all of that they've done so far is maybe the Nick Fury one with the girls.
Yeah.
That's like the only thing I didn't actually watch. I watched one episode and fell asleep, and I never jumped back. And that's not to say that it was super boring because I fell asleep, because I fall asleep during most TV or movies if I'm sitting down too long on a couch doing nothing.
No, it was super boring. You're right.
I think this might be dry enough that I could peel the tape.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Maybe I shouldn't have cut my fingernails recently. Focus.
Put your hand in the way. It'll focus. There you go. Maybe. Look at that clean edge.
Oh.
Wow.
Dollar store masking tape for the win. I relied on rulers for so long, and all you need to do is get some tape and you can get sloppy.
While you're doing that, I'm going to read to you some comments.
Oh, go for it.
Ali says, Dave, last week Jason talked about his go-to favorite characters to sketch. Yours?
Ooh. I don't know. I guess if I could go and look in my sketchbook, I probably have a lot of Batman drawings in there. I think I like the light and dark with him. If you look at some of my older sketchbooks, there was a lot of Hellboy. I was very big into Hellboy. These days I'm doodling my own characters and trying to really nail those down. I figure if I draw them 100 times before I actually get them onto a comic board, I'll have a fairly consistent character design.
Smart.
We'll see. The main thing that I'm drawing right now regularly is the next monster for book 2 of Kaiju Panic. I'm working on that design, and it's another thing that I really want to nail down, because we want to go bigger, crazier, and weirder than the first issue.
Awesome.
So Wolf's given me the list of things he wants to see with this monster, and I'm gonna work up a design, and then we're gonna do the same thing we did with the last one, where he's gonna kind of go through and give me his notes, and I'll refine, and we'll go back and forth until we get something we're satisfied with.
That is beautiful.
Go there.
Dave, that's awesome. It looks really good.
Thank you.
Ali says, oh my God, Dave getting close to the blast source is making me go like this. And Chuck says, wow, Dave, the finished Cyclops smokes. Incredible.
Thank you.
Mr. Anti-Idiotic is talking about the Peter Parker, Kitty Pryde kissing in the rain. From Ultimate Spider-Man, I think that is, where they were a couple. I never read any of that stuff. Was it like a Mark Bagley run?
Yeah. Um, I personally read Ultimate Spider-Man, I think, for maybe the first 90 to 100 issues. I thought it
Wow.
was a cool new take on things. Um, and, it was such a consistent book in terms of its frequency. It was another case of somehow Mark Bagley got onto 2 issues a month, which he used to do back in the early 90s when he was on Amazing Spider-Man. Um, like, I don't know many artists that are capable of handling 2 books a month. Like maybe I think John Romita Jr. did for a little bit,
Yeah, back in the day.
you know, but him and Bagley were those kind of deadline artists that could just
Yeah.
pump out a book. Uh,
I've
yeah,
yet to read any of the Ultimate Spider-Man.
it was good. It came out I think at the right time because it was like 2002 when it started. They were giving away a free comic book day that year, which was the same year that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie came out. They were
Right.
handing out free comic book day copies of issue 1 of that book. So it was it was like that corporate synergy thing coming together where like we're launching this movie and we're probably going to get a lot of new people who haven't read Spider-Man in a long time and they would be lost in the continuity. So let's start something fresh for them and something modern too.
And it worked. People love it.
Yeah, yeah. And it was my, I guess, probably big introduction to Bendis's writing. He went on to do some good stuff with Daredevil.
And of course, it gave us Miles.
It did, yeah. And now, like, I don't know, at least one of my kids, that's his Spider-Man,
Oh, 100%.
which is so cool to see.
Yeah, mine too. My kids love those movies. As do I.
Yeah. Oh my God, they're amazing.
It is late. It is.
Yep.
We have gone over 2 hours, which I did not expect us to do. I am naive. I should have expected it. Dave, firstly, let me just say thank you for hanging out with me tonight. I got to tell you, you're good company.
Thanks,
You're
man.
good company, buddy. But I wasn't joking about if you ever want to see. I'm happy to head down to the Sidekick or somewhere else and hang out with you and bring an artist edition or two, and have a drink and go through them and have a laugh.
Loved
I'm
it.
always up for that. That would be really cool and a lot of fun to do. Um, Mr. Anti-Idiotic is asking, are you going to do my request? No, we're done for the night, man. We've been drawn for 2 hours, and this is it for me. I'll finish this one up over the next couple days when I have a minute here or there. But if you want to commission some art, you're most welcome to reach out through Instagram. It's probably the safest way to reach me at Jason Lapidus Art. You can find me there, or send us an email or anything like that at Group of Seven Comics or Group of Seven Comics. What's our email address? Info at Group of Seven Comics.ca. I believe that's our email. But Dave, where can we find out more about you and, of course, Kaiju Panic?
You can find me on Instagram at Red Eye Draws, and my website is redeyedraws.com, where I sell original art and I sell
Oh,
comic books. And maybe this one will find its way online tomorrow.
beautiful. That's cool. To follow up, Mr. Idiotic asks about the next live stream. When is the next one? Next Tuesday night, 9 o'clock. We try and do our live stream every Tuesday. My co-host Chris will be back from his vacation, and we will be reading Uncanny X-Men issue 202 from Claremont and I believe John Romita Jr. And I think that is an issue where Rachel, now named Phoenix, is going after the Beyonder as a tie into Secret Wars 2. I think that's what's happening in it. I have not read ahead, but I also haven't read that comic in probably 30 years, maybe 35. So we'll get to that. Dave, when is the next time you're appearing at a show or an event around the
I,
world?
I I can lay down a few. I got Wolf and I will be signing Kaiju Panic at Youthful Vengeance in Toronto. It's a cafe run by a friend of mine, and that will be August 24th. It's Dundas and Ossington area. On September 21st, you can find us at Wayside Comics in Newmarket doing a signing. Just got confirmed with Omar. And October 5th, I want to say, Whitby FanCon.
Is that soon?
It is, yeah. I actually had to look up the date today. I believe it's October 5th. It's a Saturday. So we've got those ones coming up.
I'll see you at Whippy FanCon for sure, which is cool. And then to find me, let's see. I'm going to be up in Barrie at something on Saturday. There's, I think, Kempenfest or something. There's like an antique fair and a one-of-a-kind craft show. And my dad is going up there to sell some golf collectibles. I'm going to help him out with that. But I'll be probably selling some original art up there on Saturday. But that's not really what I should be talking about. Let's see. August 17th, Sanigan and I will be at Wayside Comics and Cocktails in Newmarket, Ontario. September 14th, we'll be at the Guelph Comics Jam at the Dragon for their annual thing. October 5th, I guess you said, is when Whitby Fan Con, whatever that one is. It used to be WitCaf, which we were at every year. And so I'm looking forward to doing that one again. And then October, I want to say 27th, is it? Omar and the Crip at Wayside are putting on Wayside Creator Con, which, Dave, get on that.
I will get in touch with Omar for sure.
Get on that.
Yeah, I think get in on that one.
Get on that. It's going to be, I think, a special one too. So there's lots of good things coming our way in the next few months. But thank you to Dave again for hanging out for the night. You're great company, no joke. And what a beautiful piece you drew. So it's very inspiring, and it pisses me off, which is great. And then thank you to everyone in the chat. You guys are hilarious and fun to hang around with. So thank you. And we'll see you next time. And I hope everyone out there stays well. Go see Wolverine and Deadpool in that order, because Wolverine is the better character. And we'll talk about it. I think Chris sees it on Thursday, so we'll be able to chat a little bit about it next Tuesday night. We can have some spoilers. If you aren't going to see it and you're a regular, you haven't seen it yet, just let us know in the chat. We won't spoil it for you. But if you've all seen it, you can give us a thumbs up, and we can spoil all the wonderful cameos or whatever, and then who lives, who dies, and all that nonsense we can talk about. Tons of fun. But other than that, be good to each other, stay well out there, and of course, everyone's stay exy. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Hey.
It's so silly.